The late Vice President Joshua Nkomo was a mystery character who was much sought after by the rabid colonial government, but was at ease when he was around his fellow countrymen. The folklore around Dr. Nkomo has been a permanent feature among those who saw him rise to power and lead the nationalist movement. It is said that Dr. Nkomo, who was also known as Zimbabwe.c, had some supernatural powers and could change into a cat or an old lady to dodge his enemies. Dr. Nkomo survived an assassination attempt on April 15, 1979, after Rhodesian operatives trailed him in neighboring Zambia. The Rhodesian operatives tracked down Dr. Nkomo after the Ian Smith regime made a firm decision to assassinate him after the shooting down of the Air Rhodesia plane in Kariba. The infamous Sealis Scouts assigned Sealis Scout Chris Go to survey Nkomo's house and draw up the roadmap from the Zambezi to Lusaka. It was reported in the media then that Go was ideal since he was born in Zambia and had a Zambian passport. A report in the Zambian Observer capturing the history noted that Go joined the Lusaka Golf Club, which was near Dr. Nkomo's house on Nyerere Drive and President Lane, which led to President Kenneth Kanda's State House. He monitored Dr. Nkomo's movements. Back in Rhodesia, at the back of Nkomo Barracks, a makeshift house similar to Dr. Nkomo's Lusaka house was built for invasion practice by the Sealis Scouts who would be involved in the actual attack. On April 14, 1979, the attacking Rhodesian Special Air Service unit crossed the Zambezi at Kariba by boat under the command of Captain Martin Pierce, guided by Anthony White, who had done reconnaissance of Nkomo's house with Go. The Zambian intelligence spotted them and thought they were Zambian Land Rovers. Another group of Rhodesian commandos landed at the Lusaka Golf Club and attacked Dr. Nkomo's safe house, former CELTAL headquarters in Lusaka. Dr. Nkomo survived the assassination attempt by sneaking into State House using a back door. When asked by a reporter how he escaped the attack, Dr. Nkomo replied that he had jumped out of a little window at the back of the house. This is one of the stories that made people believe Dr. Nkomo had mythical powers. Many people were convinced that due to his huge stature, he could not escape through the window he purportedly used. It is said that Dr. Nkomo turned into a cat and made haste his escape, hence his unexplainable survival. Renowned historian and writer Mr. Pathisa Nyathi said indeed Dr. Nkomo had some supernatural powers. Nkomo was a spiritual man, and when we say he was a cultural person, we are referring to specifically his spiritual powers. He had spiritual powers, no doubt about that. So many spirit mediums would give him the staffs, and there were plenty which are displayed at the museum, said Mr. Nyathi. He said the spiritual powers that Dr. Nkomo had could not be revealed as it was private. Mr. Nyathi said Dr. Nkomo was a mythical being, hence most of the stories about his escape were unbelievable. A myth has a role to play in society. So, if he was regarded as somebody with certain spiritual powers, no wonder there will be such a myth around him to reinforce perceptions of people about the man, he said. Mr. Nyathi said one of the other mythical standouts was the short wooden staff that he carried around during political rallies. It was said to imbue some spiritual powers that endeared him to the masses and command their allegiance. The belief is that the staff was not an ordinary stick, it had some extraordinary powers, and this is why it could do things that an ordinary person would not do. It could control the crowd because of its power. So it was not a staff that was just taken from the bush. Some rituals were done to it so that it could relate to him, said Mr. Nyathi. One of the standout pictures that Dr. Nkomo is known for was when he was surrounded by traditional healers during a ceremony. Bulawayo-based traditionalist Dr. David Mabhanyani Ngwenya said Dr. Nkomo cherished culture, heritage and spirituality, and as such often visited shrines such as Njulel and Dula. He said when Dr. Nkomo entered the shrine he spoke on behalf of all Zimbabweans who were under oppression. "I didn't enter the shrine, but Nkomo did. He would tell the spirits of the problems that people were facing as a result of the colonial government. The spirits of the nation are in Dula, Njulel and other shrines around the country. They aren't spirits of someone who died a long time ago, they are spirits of the nation of Zimbabwe," said Mr. Ngwenya. He said the stories that he would change to a cat or old woman were true. The story that he turned into a cat in Zambia when they tried to assassinate him is very true. When the enemy tried to attack where he was in Zambia, he turned into a cat. This was like a miracle, and it showed the powers he had, said Mr. Ngwenya. He said it was not Dr. Nkomo changing into a cat, but it was the enemy that was deceived by the spirits to see a cat or an old lady